So I'll start with a story because Pulkit has already set the tone. I don't want to let you guys down and disrupt the storytelling feature. So this story is about a household. And those of you who are book readers might have invariably heard about this story somewhere or the other. If you have, just keep the suspense in that. Okay. A household where lived two kids. One was a rich kid, obviously the son of the owner of the household. The other kid was the son of the maid who used to work in that household. This rich kid was touted to be the next Shakespeare. So he used to write articles, short stories at times. And one of these days, this rich kid ran up to the poor kid and said, "Listen, I had written this short story and had sent it to my maternal uncle, who happens to be the junior Shakespeare. And he just came back with some feedback. And great feedback. Would you like to hear that?" So poor kid was innocent to mind. He said, "Yes, why not?" So the rich kid and poor kid start reading the letter from the uncle. And the rich kid says, "What is the story I wrote? Story is about a man who used to work really hard, but was not very rich. So one day, he prayed so hard to the gods that one of the gods presented himself and said, 'I'm going to give you a boon.' And he gave him a cup. The magic in the cup was that every time this poor man shed a tear in that cup, that tear used to turn into pearl. So he had to cry in order to become rich. That was the boon, the bottom line. And with this cup in hand and his wife along with him, he ran away into the jungle to make sure that his life changes. Nobody could find him for the next 2 months. And ultimately, the family members started hunting him around in the jungle, and they found him. When they found him, to their astonishment, he was sitting on a pile of pearls. But he was not just sitting there. He had something in his hand. What did he have in his hand? He had a bloody knife. And there was one more thing that they noticed. The body of the wife was lying at the base of the mountain of pearls. Okay? And this is the story. So the rich kid, zoom out for a moment. Okay, this is like, what is that movie? Where you are looking at a dream within a dream, this is a story within a story. So the rich kid now says, this is the story. This guy had killed his wife so that he could shed so many tears into the cup that he became rich. And the poor kid at this point says, well, that's a nice story. Wouldn't it have been easier to just cut an onion and put it to the eyes? That's the story of simplicity. Ultimately, this is the message that I would like to pass on once we are done with these slides in front of us. So the title was Simplicity and HR Innovation. I just added a bit of spice to it. And I called it a battle of X's. And I'll explain to you why I call them X's. They used to create partners, one, HR Innovation and Simplicity, but not anymore. So let's look at how the HR story started. How many of you recall this pyramid? What is it? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Do you know when it was created? Long time back. Long time back. Fact of the matter remains that every employee engagement strategy in any organization today follows this pyramid in one way or the other. If it does not follow it, there's the theory of prime motivation, which talks about impulses, instincts, the moderating effect of your previous experiences on it, how you ultimately behave in society. If not that, you have the two-factor motivation theory, which talks about what are the various factors that create a push and pull in your personality to become the human that you ultimately become. Let me ask, that Pulkit asked after showing all the photographs, what is common between all these three philosophies? One of you has already answered the question for me, but open for thoughts. Okay, I'll repeat the answer that one gentleman just mentioned. They were made a long time, all of them. And this brings us to how is HR and the stuff going as we speak. One thing for sure, dollars are flowing in. We are talking about human resource consulting, human resource management systems, management suite, HRMS software, totaling upwards of a $60 billion industry as we speak. Okay. What else? Employer branding has become a big deal. If you're not using that loudspeaker about your employee experience, you're seen as someone who is not good at it. There are these surveys which happen. There are these certifications which happen. I'll not name one, but you know the synonyms, right? The interesting thing about these surveys and these certifications is that your primary audience, which is your candidate that you want to bring into the organization, knows that 90% of it is hype and 10% of it is what matters. Now, what is the source of my information? You just need to talk to someone, not as an HR, mind you, because that's a contaminant in your research process. But just try and find out how your survey, your certification, which are specifically synonymous with those terms, are helping your candidate make a decision for you. It doesn't matter. What matters to them is the work environment, and that's the 10% that they focus on. Okay, this is how it is going. And one story that is common is that HR continues to be seen as or perceived as a function which is number versus statistical. That's the current state, and you might disagree with it, but this is my worldview. This is how I have seen things happen in the last 17 years. This is how things started. This is where they are right now. But why are they here? Why are the things the way they are today? Why is it that not a single human resource engagement, employee engagement, human resource psychology framework has come into existence in the last 1 decade that has found as much connect as Maslow's hierarchy of needs? And that should be an indication for you what is the current state of HR innovation. Okay, so innovation is happening. I'm not saying innovation is not happening. Innovation is happening, but it is superficial. But it is also very complex. And is complex always good? We'll try and find that out. How many of you are able to recall this photograph? Have you read it? Greek, Roman mythology. Does the word Icarus come to your mind? This is a minor character in Greek mythology, emanating from a city called Crete in Greece. His father was a great scientist. I don't remember his name now. But he created wings of bats, which could help people fly. This guy became so confident with the flight that he flew close to the sun, a bit too close to the sun. And that's when the bat's feathers melted away. He fell to his death. Something similar happened to his father. Problem that I'm trying to highlight here is, when does complexity start becoming poisonous? When does complexity start becoming toxic? And it plays out in multiple ways in the human resource world. I'm going to pick an example here. I call it a sample of toxicity, and something that most of you would be able to relate to. It goes back to the synonyms box that I created on how it is going now. Every employer branding initiative that you create would need contributions and projects to be run on the shoulders of the employees. What is the other reality? The other reality is that participation in these brand building activities is never provisioned in project finance. The only company that was brave enough to come back and say that we could give you time out of your 24 hours to actually work on projects of your choice was Google. Are they doing it anymore? You don't have to answer that question. Just check with any person who's working at Google now. Because there is no provision, it ultimately draws the time from the project time. Okay? And then starts a mad race because business unit leaders, they all thrive on initiatives. The more initiatives I can run in a calendar year, the more I would have to write for my appraisals. And that pressure seeps through to the team managers. And now the team managers have to create a pressure or a peer pressure of participation in these so-called voluntary events. And this is where the first step in toxicity starts taking shape. The Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, does not just apply to your customers, it also applies to teams. Your top performers are likely to take care of almost 80% of your team's work, meaningful work. Okay, I'm not talking about ticketing systems. I'm talking about real productivity. The top 20% of your talent is pulling almost 80% of your team's weight. Now you're adding another weight to them by giving them a role to play in an initiative that they did not want to play a role in. They're happy. They're top talent. They're happy, and that's why they are with you. But still, they have to show and wear a badge that says that they are doing well in your organization. And this is where your top 20% start spreading thin. And the bottom 80%, they start taking part in these initiatives because they have to be useful somewhere, right? At the end of the year, they will say that this is what all I participated in. How does it play out in your year-end performance? The 80% want to take credit and they want to get rewards for the work that they had done in these initiatives, which were over and above their work. Top 20%, which had participated in these initiatives, regardless of their own workload, will now expect more. But everyone knows that in the performance management system, the ultimate reality is your budget. If you spread it evenly across these 80% and 20%, there is going to be disillusionment in the 20% because they have worked hard and they have driven these initiatives. If you don't, and if you differentiate highly between your 20% and 80%, the 80% are going to say, well, I deserve some recognition because I participated in all these initiatives and I did my own work. What happens? Because of this, both the 20% and the 80% start feeling a bit of negativity. And when this negativity starts boiling over, what happens? Oh, it's time for another employer branding initiative. And that's where this cycle, this poisonous cycle starts going round and round and round. Because to counter the negativity, you now want to get into positivity. And to get into positivity, you have to create a positive atmosphere. This is just one sample of toxicities, okay, which the complexity has brought onto us. What is the antidote to all this toxicity? In all the organizations that I have led about 7 organizations. This is the 7th organization that I'm leading right now. I have tried to keep things simple and organic. And my faith is that your current employees can be your best brand advocates. And for that, it is necessary that you pamper them. Please, shamelessly pamper them. Because the return on pampering is much higher than the return on investment. If you pamper your top talent and your middle talent well enough, they are going to be the people who are going to talk about you as a brand out there in the organizations, other organizations in their social circles. Raise of hands, please. And how many of you have an employee referral rate on your jobs more than 40%? So you can make out how rare it is. Okay. If you are hitting the 40% mark, you don't need any publicity. There are very few companies, top employers in India, which are hitting that 40% mark right now. In fact, I would say anything above 35% is also very risky. Your referrals come in only when the people that are currently working with your team feel that their friend would be well taken care of in the. Okay, so employee advocacy is something that is a great lever when it comes to bringing talent in. How many of you engage actively with the negative reviews publicly? Very few companies do it. One of the organizations that actually uses these reviews as their business model is Glassdoor. The Glassdoor algorithm automatically upgrades you to an engaged employer when you start engaging with specifically the negative comments. Okay, I personally feel that if you are publicly able to turn around one of your detractors, that is the biggest brand building that you can do. Keeping things simple. When it comes to positives, let others talk about your positives. In the year of the Great Resignation, the organization that I'm currently heading in India walked away with an attrition percentage that was way below market average. So I work for a semiconductor domain. Semiconductor is creme de la creme of the IT industry. If you feel that your IT recruiters are of the opinion that their job is tough, put them into the semiconductor recruitment industry for just a month. I can tell you they'll return very happily to the IT headhunting job. Okay? In that kind of a competitive market, we were able to well contain our attrition. Our attrition in this year, in the year gone by, has been a single digit. What that allows us to do is we continue to ensure that the people who are with us, we take care of them in the best possible way, and we give them enough avenue to start talking about whatever they want to talk. So this is the antidote to complexity and the toxicity that generally comes from complexity. Let's also talk about the HRMS key. When I was engaging with Pulkit and he was talking about what was the subject of today's discussion, one thing that I totally agree on is every time you deploy an HRMS software or tool, it is an opportunity to simplify things for your employees. What does the simplification look like? It looks like this: paper versus data. Okay, it looks like micromanagement versus macro management. It looks like donkey work versus efficiency. It looks like data versus insight. It looks like cost versus relief to the bottom line. It also looks like hit and miss employee experience versus a consistent employee experience. And a consistent employee experience, just for your information, is a hygiene factor these days when you're talking about challenges. So, what are the hygiene factors when we look at an HRMS software? Some things that it should be able to simplify for us the moment we install it. The first thing is there should be a seamless handshake between the employee's resume and the master data records that we create. How many of you struggle with a successful parsing algorithm on your career stage? How many times is the parsing algorithm not able to keep a track of the resume format and populate the right framework, right fields in your HRMS intuitively? Okay. If you are not able to do it, then that's the first step of an HRMS software. It is supposed to make things simple. And then let's talk about portability of data. Once the recruitment has been done, once the selection has been done, and the person has been hired, you have to start filling in the employee master data again, or does it intuitively pick it up from the resume data that had been parsed at the time of the application? What else? It should embrace hybrid work intuitively. I have personally run into problems wherein the biometrics and the format in which the biometric raw file and raw data was being stored was not compatible with the data that the HRMS software was porting in. And that required us to work with the previous vendor, biometrics vendor, create another software and a new interface, and then seamlessly break it in. Analytics, dashboard, MIS. How intuitively is your HRMS allowing that to happen? And remember, I'm just talking about hygiene factors here. I've not even gone into my wish list now, which I will cover shortly. Okay. Intuitive and easy to tweak workflows. The year was 2018, and one of the market leaders in HRMS software had reached out to me and said, please deploy us. After a due diligence that we had done, we deployed this software. The biggest headache that we ran into was that we had to sit and create every single workflow. What happens when direct report moves from manager A to manager B? Who all approves it? That's a workflow, right? Imagine how many such workflows would be there. Imagine how many such employee personas would be there that you would have to replicate to your workflows. So does the HRMS software create these personas and these workflows intuitively? That's the other hygiene factor, because I can tell you right now it is donkey work. Okay, my team used to curse me. Why did you bring in this software? If everything has to be done by us, why did you bring in this software? I used to tell them that just the one pain point that you have, after this life will be easy. I had to tell them this time for 30 days. A lot of toxicities. A single window for compliances. Okay, they are hitting a stage wherein artificial intelligence is being deployed by the PF and gratuity department also. Okay, if any of you have foreign workers working in India, you know that there's a penalty that you have to pay if you have not declared them as foreign workers. The PF dues are recovered in KPK. Okay, the artificial intelligence deployment that is going on in PF and gratuity is just one of the few compliances that they are looking at. Now gone are the days wherein they had to physically run through all the returns that you had filed. There's an algorithm that runs, there's a crawler algorithm that runs, and it pops up whichever companies have not filed returns on a particular form. Prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. You know that returns have to be filed. Okay, so we are hitting that stage. We would like an HRMS software to take care of this thing. Social media is important. Remember the loudspeaker that lady was carrying on the how it is doing right now. Social media is that loudspeaker. But is social media safe? One of the largest, and I come from the semiconductor domain, and that's why I'm telling you, one of the largest consumer goods companies in the semicon domain had a massive breach of data. I'll name the country, South Korea. Just because they used ChatGPT without putting in the requisite filter. ChatGPT learns from every data that's going to it. And that data gets consolidated into a public domain. Someone used that software to create the transcripts of a meeting. That meeting became public knowledge. The code became public knowledge. So if you are engaging, if you are allowing the HRMS software to seamlessly integrate with social media, are you doing it in a safe manner? And finally, intuitive goals tracking. Okay, most of the HRMS software that I've seen require you to slide. You have a slider and a percentage box where you slide and it becomes 90% complete, 50% complete, 50% complete. But in an agile kind of an environment, how tough it is to integrate an HRMS software with your Jira ticketing system for that. If you do that, productivity samples will get fixed, productivity will start getting tracked, goals will start getting automatically stable. So these are hygiene factors, but we are talking about innovation. Okay, and here is my wish list of innovation. This is what I would like to see in an HRMS software. Burnout, employee burnout. Can I have a talent heat map that tells me which of my talent is at the risk of burnout and disengagement the most? Okay. Low code, no code, statistical capabilities. Okay. I remember it was in the 5th year of my career that I started becoming comfortable with correlation and regression. But I would not have touched it if I would not have been thrown into a decision-making system that requires me to rattle out coefficient and regression coefficient anytime I'm supporting a decision. I'm not expecting everyone to be in that stage, okay, fresh or fall. But does an HRMS system allow you to do it in a very intuitive way? How many of you are aware of circadian rhythms? Anyone? Okay. So, all of you would agree, you are either a night person or a day person. Some of you might be morning people also. When your brain works most optimally, when you want to pick your toughest problems, because you know that you will be able to give it a best shot. Look up circadian rhythms. It is a very simple way of finding out when your productivity is going to hit a peak. So if you are talking about hybrid workforce, if you are talking about flexible workforce, why not make it doubly impactful by creating the flexibility at the time of your maximum productivity? The other name for circadian rhythms is biorhythms. Okay, but I would like to see what is the circadian rhythm of one of my employees before assigning them a shift, maybe. So everyone has heard about absenteeism. You've heard about presenteeism. It is when you are physically there in the office but mentally not there. An EMI coming up which you don't have the wherewithal to pay. Okay? Or any financial liability coming up in your family that you are not equipped to pay. You are there in the office, you are mentally not there in the office. Can, with a dip of productivity and correlating it with your physical presence in office, can I create a chart that tells me whether you are under stress? Interviewing software today are doing that, by the way, just to let you know. They look at pupil dilation, they look at the amount of sweating, they look at the pulse rate based on the visual pulses that they see in your neck. When you're angry, just look at your neck sometimes. You see that the aortal connection has started throbbing. Interviewers are using all that data to tell whether a person is answering a question genuinely or not. Okay, I don't want to go to that extreme. But can we deploy a fraction of that part and find out how our current employees are doing on a day-to-day basis? And finally, learning management benchmark data. In most of the learning management tools, I struggle. So unlike if you enter a comp benchmarking tool, for example, okay, you would obviously have paid for the benchmarking data. Also, you'll be able to see where you're positioning your talent. But when you're creating a learning management plan, do you have ready reference to find out how you are doing against your peer group when you're creating the learning management? Okay, I'm not getting into the Kirkpatrick model. I'm not getting into the return on investment on learning. I'm just talking about simple benchmark that if you are of a particular domain, if you are a particular industry, what are the typical learning management interventions that are deployed by a company? So this is my wish list. Okay, Pulkit, I don't know whether I have made your life simpler or still, but this is what I thought when it comes to HR innovation. Okay, thank you everyone for your time. I hope you had a good 40-50 minutes, and it was a pleasure addressing all of you.